When Kagurabachi was first released, it was clowned on to a huge extent. There were tons of memes of how wannabe edgy it was, and I've seen that one image of Chihiro more times than I've seen certain loved ones. Now if you told those same people that today the series would sell over 20,000 copies and studios like Mappa were looking to animate it, they'd probably scream and ask you how they got into their house. Unlawful entry aside, the switch up on the series was quite sudden, but definitely not undeserved. The story is very intriguing, the characters are great, the art really shines at points, and Hiyuki. Now for the uninitiated, Kagurabachi was created by Takahiro Kasuno, and follows the story of Chihiro Rokuhira, a young man whose dad was killed for allegedly $50 on a lighter. His main goal is revenge, but despite his cold demeanor, he's a really nice guy. It's clear he wants to be an unfeeling killing machine. However, Chihiro's just such a nice guy that he can't help but care about those around him. This is especially prevalent when it comes to his interactions with Cha. He goes above and beyond to save her, even giving her an unswashed sandwich. As Shiba said, what a guy that Chihiro. Speaking of Shiba, he's basically Chihiro's ward and only friend at the start of the story. I think Shiba represents a core part of how easily likable the main cast is. He's just a chill guy who helps guide Chihiro after the death of his father. And also he's just a very friendly design. He looks like the kind of guy to help old ladies cross the street, if that makes any sense. That's enough glazing the characters for now, there'll be more than enough of that soon. World building is also excellent, though a bit more subtle than some of the other aspects of the story. I think when people praise shows for their world building, it's because the entire point of the show is just about exposition about how interesting the world is. In Kagurabachi, the world building is sprinkled throughout the story. We'll learn more about things like the enchanted blades and the Kamunabi as time goes on. We're also told what stuff like the Sete War, and though we don't know much about it now, I wouldn't be surprised if we learn more about it in the future. Though it is possible, it'll just continue to be a smaller part of the wider narrative, and we'll just have to wonder what occurred during that war, which can be just as interesting as them telling us exactly what happened. Speaking of the narrative, the story keeps getting more and more interesting as it goes on. At first, it seems like it's just going to be a generic story about Chihiro on a journey to avenge his father, but during the first arc we meet Sojo, who has one of the enchanted blades, and shows what would happen if one of these weapons were in the wrong hands. Which is why in the second arc, the idea of an enchanted blade being auctioned off is such a scary one. Though the idea of the blades being in the wrong hands is a very subjective one, which is why the Kamunabi take action against Chihiro to confiscate his enchanted blade. Chihiro didn't want to hand his enchanted blade over to anyone, since his father made them and they are rightfully his. But after witnessing its power let loose and how horrifying it was, he hands it over to the Kamunabi on the condition that he can join them. This leads into the most recent arc, but before we get into that, there are two characters introduced in the second arc who I want to talk about. First off is Hakuri. Hakuri is a member of the Sazanami clan. However, his siblings bully him because he lacks any talent when it comes to sorcery, whilst being a part of a family known for their exceptional sorcery. He admires Chihiro for his bravery when finding Sojo, and strives to be brave like him, even taking a punch that would have definitely killed him if he didn't hold back. Hakuri is shown to be incredibly weak at the start, which makes his growth throughout the second arc much more interesting to read. It's revealed later on that a part of the reason he's no good at sorcery is because of his own self-doubt. It's only when he's encouraged and relied on by Chihiro that he is able to better master his skills in sorcery. Hakuri's story is one of self-doubt, and the feeling that one doesn't belong. The one place where he should belong is one where he's treated like shit by his own relatives, who care more about their reputation and sorcery over their own flesh and blood. It's only when Hakuri leaves them and meets Chihiro is when he's able to build up his confidence. He's found people who like him and accept him for who he is. In simple terms, Hakuri's story is one where he learns to believe in himself. But if we look more into that, it tells us that the people who don't care about you will put you down and abuse you, even if they pretend to care about you and act like they have your best interests at heart. But if you're able to reach out, you'll find people who will believe in you, who will see you for your good qualities and accept you for who you truly are. I'm now realizing you would probably see this as a gay allegory, which is very fitting now that I think about it. And speaking of gay, it's time to talk about my favorite character.
Damn it, I've been banned from Dave & Buster's.
Hiyuki is a character first introduced in Chapter 18. She's one of the Kamunabi's strongest soldiers, and she's also batshit insane. She kinda reminds me of Saiyan from Dragon Ball during her fight with Chihiro. The way she demands Chihiro goes all out, and even says she can't do it without her life being on the line. It's very Saiyan-esque if you ask me. She even suffers what looks like to be a pretty serious head wound during the battle. She just tanks it like it's nothing. Tafuku even says she could have dodged it. She either did that to throw off Chihiro, or the more likely explanation is that this woman's a freak. It's clear that Hiyuki has a strong moral come. No, jokes aside, it's clear that Hiyuki has a strong moral code. which causes her to clash heads with her superiors at times. Like when they plan to buy the Tsunuchi from the Sazanami clan auction, whilst Hayuki just wanted to tear the whole thing down because of how messed up it was. Going back to her fight with Chihiro, when Hikari jumps in the way of her attack, it's said later on that she actually held back when she punched him, though it didn't matter due to how weak Hikari was at the time. But it shows that Hayuki isn't a bad person, and she's only fighting Chihiro because she genuinely believes that the Enchanted Blade should not be in the hands of him, and instead should be in the hands of the Kamunabe. During the Sazanami clan auction, Hayuki reluctantly teams up with Chihiro despite not wanting him to wield an Enchanted Blade, but does so when she realizes it's the only way they'll put a stop to the auction for good. This arc has quite a few good moments that involve Hayuki, showing that despite her first showing up to kill Chihiro, he's only doing what she thinks is right and doesn't just blindly follow orders from her superiors. Even after Chihiro puts a stop to the Sazanami clan, Hayuki still stops him from taking the Enchanted Blade for himself, though Chihiro is more willing to make a deal this time around. I do hope we get more of Hayuki in future chapters. She's probably my favourite character so far. There's a lot of development to be had with her character. I also think the fact that she's a woman could potentially play a role in her character arc. So far, Kagurabachi has a lot more male characters than female. Hayuki stands alone in the main cast as the only female fighter, and that might be intentional. It's also seen where her and Tafuku's orders get mixed up, giving Hayuki the smaller ice cream and Tafuku the largest plate of spaghetti. This is a pretty subtle detail, so I'm not sure if it will be explored thoroughly or not, but I think it could be interesting to explore that aspect of her character. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail about the latest arc since it's still ongoing, but it's introduced a few new characters and given us some new interesting information. First of all being the name of the main villain, that being Yura, and that apparently Shiba is the very pinnacle of the sorcerer world. Throughout heaven and sky, Shiba is truly that guy. The new characters are also pretty cool, especially the Enchanted Blade wielders. Sora was made for people to make Sigma edits of him on TikTok, and Urahara is in love with Chihiro instead. But the one who really sees the show is Hirohiko. He challenges the readers to think about the implications of all Chihiro's murders. He goes for the "you're just like me for real" approach, showing that from the perspective of normal people, Chihiro is a monster just like him, but Chihiro pushes back against that, saying that all killing is the same and choosing to protect the lives of the innocent bystanders. I think Hirohiko is a very interesting foil to Chihiro, though he's currently in a compromising position, you could say. I think Hirohiko could make a great rival for Chihiro for the rest of the series. I've seen a lot of people compare him to Mahito from Jujutsu Kaisen. I can't help but agree with the comparison. The rivalry between Itadori and Mahito works really well in that series, so I think it would be cool to have something similar in Kagurabachi. I also just think Hirohiko is a silly little guy, and I like him a lot. So yeah, that's Kagurabachi so far. I've been enjoying it a lot, but there is still a lot more potential for it to grow and improve to make the series even better. I just mentioned Jujutsu Kaisen, which ended recently, and though I really like how it turned out, there's certainly a lot of missed potential, and I hope Kagurabachi doesn't end up the same way, since I really want to see more of the other characters, especially Hayuki. Please, she hasn't shown up for a few chapters. I'm going through Hayuki withdrawals, please, please, please. In all seriousness, the series only just recently passed 50 chapters, so we've still got much more to see, and the series just seems to keep getting better and better. So I think now is the best time to get on the Kagurabachi hype train, especially with the first English volume being released in November. Plus, from what I've experienced, the community is pretty chill. I obviously can't say for sure that every Kagurabachi fan is a cool person. Every manga and anime community has some pretty annoying people for the most part. But for a community that I mostly see on Twitter, which is the most toxic and dookie place on the internet, they're mostly just some normal and chill people. And I really hope this doesn't age poorly, so please don't get corrupted, Bachi bros. The last thing I want to say is that I think it's really cool that a series can go from everyone thinking it's corny and probably going to be cancelled, to a series that is now beloved by many and is selling really well. Kagurabachi isn't my favourite manga. It hasn't been around long, so of course it isn't. But I'm really happy to see a new and cool shonen series get popular, and only become more popular when the anime comes out. Though I don't think it'll come out anytime soon, at earliest it'll be late 2026. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that we won't be getting anime soon. One, because it's best to take time with it, and maybe even let the animators go home and see their families. That would be pretty cool, you know? Secondly, it's still relatively new, so there isn't much to adapt yet. This is a series I've generally grown to care about, and I think it has the potential to stand side by side with some of the current popular shonen shows. Now that Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia are both over, it's easy to think of Kagurabachi as a replacement for these shows, or as the next big thing, but I honestly don't need it to be either. I just want Kagurabachi to be Kagurabachi. I like it for what it is, and even though I don't know what the future holds for the series, I'm gonna stick with it till the end. Because even if it does fall off at some point, or it has a bad ending, or for whatever reason, I can look back fondly on the stuff I did like. And most importantly, it isn't Boruto. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, Bachi Bros. Like and subscribe. and leave a comment as to which woman you think Hayuki should kiss. It doesn't have to be a woman from Kagurabachi, it could just be any woman. My personal choice is your mom.